fraud started in 1787, when George Washington didn't take the oath to the Constitution for the United States of America to bring forward the Republic. He had another agenda. He wasn't on the land for 14 years. He would have had to take the oath by 1790. I think he had other intentions at that time. I think that that was the stepping stone of the switchover.
What was his oath?
The Constitution of the United States instead of the Constitution for the United States of America.
Is there a difference between the United States and the United States of America?
The United States is a corporate entity. The United States of America is a sovereign entity for the people and the Republic.
Gus, what about the Articles of Confederation? Why the Articles of Confederation, do you believe?
Well, the Articles of Confederation were obviously the first document after the Declaration of Independence. They set the foundation for our government. And they laid out the perimeter that our government could exist in and bound it up to that foundation. And it set the authority that the government had from that day forth. So when the Constitution came in later and said, in order to form a more perfect union, the Constitution was actually amending the Articles of Confederation, the foundation. It was an amendment to the foundation of government. It wasn't the new government. It was the foundation had already been set. The authority the people gave up in the Articles of Confederation is that same authority that the people who got together to write the Constitution, that's the same authority that they were dealing with.
Let's talk about some foundation. You're talking about the founding documents and the organic instruments. Sheriff Roy, why did we even want government? What was government for?
That's a good question, Gene. The government was put together to serve the public, serve the people of the United States of America, to guard its borders, to secure its rights, and to support those, what we thought was in the Constitution, in the courtroom, to uphold those rights.
Okay.
And through the taxation and stuff that came forth, we find out that we're funding literally criminal activity, because their intent is not to defend us, but to do what they will with us.
So we know that the documents, when we talk about the Articles of Confederation, Jim, why are they even important? Is that a regulation for the people, or why were they even written? Why is it even necessary to have Articles of Confederation?
Because the people at the time decided that they wanted to have a lawful entity, government, whatever you want to call it, to go by. And the Articles of Confederation was the vehicle that they chose. And this was, you got to understand, this was during the Revolutionary War. They were trying to break their bondage from outside interests. And they chose to bring the Declaration of Independence forward. And as a result of that, the Articles of Confederation was born. That was a law form at that time for the people. It was meant for the people. It was meant for the sovereign. Confederation was born. That was a law form at that time for the people. It was meant for the people. It was meant for the sovereign states and sovereign territories at that time. It was meant for the people. It wasn't meant for any other interest.
Why did they think that why did they have the Constitution? Do you know, Gus?
In reading the Articles of Confederation, the foundation that was laid, and then reading the Constitution, it does begin in the preamble, in order to form a more perfect union. More perfect than what? Well, more perfect than what's already existing. Otherwise, they didn't say they were getting rid of the Articles of Confederation. There's nothing in the Constitution. They didn't begin by saying, first order of business in the meeting here is we're getting rid of the Articles of Confederation. They said, here we have a foundation, and let's make it better with the Constitution.
What is the purpose of those documents?
Well, the purpose of the preamble of the Constitution explains what the Constitution is about, and we've all read that often. We did recently, amongst ourselves, study the Articles, so we'd have to look at the preamble to see what the purpose of the Articles was, but the purpose of the Constitution was to provide for the general welfare of the people, and for the protection of people. And further on in Article 1, I believe it's Article 1 of the Constitution, that lays out the purpose of the government as far as trading, interstate commerce, you know, things of that nature.
Okay. So what is this Union State project, Jim? What's it about?
It's a group of people in a process that's trying to bring forward a lawful government that's been dormant for 235 years.
And that would be via the Articles of Confederation, bring it back on board, correct?
Well, Article 2 says the states retain their sovereignty. So what we're doing is using primarily Article 2 to bring the sovereign states and territories forward. The territories are not states. The territories are sovereign territories, but they're not states. Only the 13 former colonies are classified as states.
That's under the Articles of Confederation, though.
But don't we already have a government? Why do you?
I don't know if you want to call it a government, if you want to call it de facto government. It's a corporate government.
I think the reason we're all here is we realized that the foundation was set, and somehow the house that was built on that foundation was not according to that blueprint. Now, your background is in home inspection. What happens when you put a foundation down and then you build a house that's not according to specs?
You're not going to have a very solid structure that we were talking about last night. The foundation was laid and accepted by international and treaty law, and it is the lawful foundation the United States of America was based on. So they took that same blueprint and they built something on top of it. It was not meant for that foundation, and it's structurally unsound. It's structurally unlawful.
Is that what's causing all the problems? Today we have court systems that do not honor their oaths of office. We have people in government that are benefiting. For instance, look at the healthcare issue. All right, they're passing healthcare against the will of the people. Okay, they pass this. The people that want this are not the providers. They're not the people that are putting out the money that are going to support that thing.
Exactly. So they had to have a system where they could do that, and as Jim said before, legal is not necessarily lawful. Fraud is legal within their system, right?
Unfortunately, statutes, codes, rules, regulations, and ordinances are legal, but they're not lawful.
And that's what allows them to get by with what they're doing today, is it? Would you agree with that?
I think they get by because of the ignorance of the people that don't know any better.
So what is the Union States project? Okay, what we're trying to do, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're taking what was already established as the foundation, already accepted under international law, through treaty law and so on, and we're taking if you will, we're jacking up the house and making sure, and we're going to reset it back down on top of a proper foundation, or are we?
Yeah, and again, that's not a new foundation, it's the one that already exists. We're bringing it forward, reclaiming it, because back in that day, and I found this out myself, we were lied to, literally. They would insinuate that they were going to do this, and then we find out through a couple of centuries that that's not the intent at all, and this has went on for a long time. And people today are realizing the condition not just the U.S. is in, but the world, that the people the world over are standing up saying it can't go on. They're passing us to the street and such.
Don't you think you'd get in trouble if you're trying to create a new government here?
We're not creating a new government. We're bringing forth one that we already have in place. It's just been abandoned. It has not been brought forth.
And how do you, when you say bring forth, what does that mean? How do you bring that forth?
By recognizing that your government is sitting there, the lawful government, and you claim it, and you claim it through the state constitutions. For example, the 13 original colonies had, or Union States, if you want to specify, had constitutions were never voted on. So what you do is you have to claim that constitution, you have to sign it, you have to do that through an assembly, you have to appoint a secretary, and then you have to decide to bring that forward.
Gus, how many people is this going to take to do this?
Well, the first thing we're doing is we're acknowledging, accepting, and adopting the Declaration of Independence and the Articles of Confederation. And that's the foundation of our government. Now, the Articles of Confederation, there was one of the states, I believe it was Delaware, had 2 delegates that accepted that and brought Delaware forward as part of the Articles of Confederation. And there were 4 other states that had 3 delegates that had been sent to who accepted that foundational document. And so what we're doing is we're getting an assembly of people together in each state that are going to accept, acknowledge, and adopt those foundational documents as the people, and we're sending notice to The Hague, the UPU, and the United Nations to let them know that, hey, we the people are back. Now, we don't represent everybody in our state. Of course, there's going to be differences of opinion, but we got to start somewhere, and we need to give lawful notice to the world that there are people and that we're not all persons, because persons and people are different, and persons are entities that are fictional. They're corporate entities, and our government is operating as a corporate fictional entity. You can look at different sections of the U.S. Code and see that the government is described as a federal corporation, and the federal corporation is who our military is taking orders from. The people are not in charge of their government anymore, and we're simply coming forward to...
I think we can all agree with that. The people's not in charge of the government anymore. Roy, you had something.
Yeah, and I want to make this understood and clear, and this is from my insides, what I feel. I don't need to give or ask anyone permission to have a free life. That's my right as a living entity on this planet. So with that, we're not asking The Hague or anyone else for permission to do anything. But due to the structure of the laws and the international and treaties and stuff, we're noticing them and warning them that now we're taking back this government that you stepped out of it. You've got this corporation running here, and you're running everything in the world. Literally, we're taking this back, and we're going to be free people.
Why is it necessary to notify The Hague? What's The Hague, Jim? And why notify them?
That's a court that was established for all the countries around the world. And no better way of notifying people around the world than to go to The Hague, which is this legal, lawful centerpiece for the adjudication.
Why is it even why is it even necessary to give a notice?
Because I think everybody's entitled to due process notification.
Well, in court, when you go to court, if you show up there and you haven't given the other side paperwork of what you're planning on bringing forward that day, that's considered an ambush. And if you do that same thing here, if the people rise up, that will be considered insurrection, sedition, and you can't just, surprise, we're here. You got to give lawful notice.
And that's another thing I said here on one of our calls a while back, that the giving notice to The Hague to me is just like the world newspaper.
It is.
Read it.
Yeah.
We've noticed. It's there. It's on record. We're free people.
And you could probably equate that with just like we know that the government was abandoned, correct?
Yes.
And if something is abandoned and forgotten for 235 years, in order to reclaim that, wouldn't you agree you have to stake your claim? You can't just
Correct.
You have to
go start operating them without giving notice to people. Is that what this is about?
Jim has covered this before. He's spoken about how if you lost something along the way and somebody found it, you have to go and let them know, I'm the rightful owner.
Stake your claim.
Stake your claim. And we've been talking about 230-something years here